Hi everyone, welcome to Review of the Week. This is episode 7, and for the first time we've got Ben in the studio.
Hi guys, my name's Ben. I'm a 16-year-old. I'm in James's year at school. We're good mates, so let's have a good argument.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. So the first story we want to talk about is essentially according to BBC, the ministers are vague and divided over Brexit. So yeah, Ben, kick us off.
Yeah, so essentially this story is a bit odd. I mean, when they say a senior Tory has claimed it, but if you just quickly scroll down into the article, you'll see that you've never heard of this senior Tory who they talk about, and they talk about him as like one of the faces of the Leave campaign, and I'd say about maybe 10% of people have ever heard of him. So, I mean, you know, just the BBC in general sort of piss me off in a way, really get on my nerves, but
They're so biased, aren't they?
Well, it's just more of the same from them, really, isn't it? I mean, not that I particularly expect anything else at this point from them, but it's just annoying how one-sided they are and how they get our taxpayer money to do that.
Yeah, the figures came out last week. The BBC, out of I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 speakers on Brexit, they had it in 2014 to 16. Only 100 of them were Brexit supporters. Yes. So it just shows the hypocrisy of the BBC and the fact that ministers are vague and divided. The Tory party, like the Conservatives, have made their stance on Brexit clear, and almost everyone is in complete agreement. But then some of them are saying, "Oh, we should stay in the single market." Some of them are saying not. But the fact still remains that the Prime Minister is saying we're going to have a hard Brexit, and these guys are just like, "Oh yeah, but the Tories don't all agree." Then Jeremy Corbyn comes along and he says he wants to stay in the European Union, and you got people like Nick Clegg, who are just mentally insane, mentally ill, to go against a democratic decision, which just really annoys us.
Well, in the article, the arch-Brexiteer Bernard Jenkins. Who? Have you ever heard
I haven't heard of Bernard
Jenkins. I have no idea who he is. Don't know who he's the MP for. Is he even? I'm not even sure if he's even a minister. Like, he may just be some backbencher that they've touted out as this arch-Brexiteer, but I've never heard of him.
I know. And yeah, he's insisted that despite the Treasury having its house view, he's going to stick to the present policy, but it just doesn't make any sense. And the fact that people are coming out and saying, "Oh, we should stay in the single market," or we shouldn't leave the customs union and stuff. It's like picking and choosing. Everyone well, obviously not everyone, but the majority voted for Brexit, and that just means you goddamn leave. And I'm not happy with paying any more money to the European Union.
I think the net figure per week was 180 million.
I know, it's outrageous.
It's not worth it.
Exactly. So, what any concluding thoughts for that story, Ben?
Well, I mean, you have to. I mean, the BBC has some good stories. They do some good investigative journalism, but I'd say overall, I think you've got to take what they say with a pinch of salt. I mean, just if you scroll further down the article, you see a photo of the man. Never seen him in my life.
Exactly. Vote Leave campaign. Leading figure.
He was a leading figure. No one's heard of him. No one's heard of him. So I mean, take what they say with a pinch of salt, especially when it comes to things like Brexit. And they're either I'd say they're informed because they're journalists, but I say if they are, then they're trying to deliberately misrepresent the issue of Brexit.
Yeah, I think the BBC have just got some left-wing agenda going on over the past recent years.
Yeah.
British people are just being confuddled all the time. Anyway, next story. The White House has asked for a 72% cut in renewable energy programs.
This story, well, I am a big believer in man-made climate change, and this story worries me. The story worries me a lot. The US is leader of the free world, as it were, and if the leader of the free world is saying that climate change, one, doesn't exist, and two, is going to cut 72% of renewable energy programs, it's
outrageous.
It is a bit outrageous in my opinion, because he just really doesn't know what he's on about. Trump, I admire him in a lot of ways, but at the same time, he really doesn't know what he's talking about in terms of climate change.
Yeah, I think Trump's been doing quite well in his first year and a bit being president, but I think that from all the good stuff he has done, like he hasn't got any new wars. He hasn't, he's lowered income tax and corporation tax and that sort of thing. But I think that the fact that this is the deciding factor for me. I'd still rather have him than Hillary Clinton. But all this,
Obama.
Yeah, well, obviously you're a bloody jihadi. But this
you can't say that.
He is.
It's so unverified.
He's a terrorist.
He is not a terrorist.
He's killed millions, Ben.
Yeah, that doesn't make him a terrorist.
But this 72% cut in renewable energy just isn't great.
Well, it's ignorance from the highest position of power in pretty much the world. So, I mean, I'm pretty worried about that, but at the same time, I think if the Democrats win in 2020, they're going to have a massive, massive hike in renewable energy programs.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you think about it from their perspective, Trump was trying to sell himself as the working for the lower class working people who have been out of jobs from industry. So I think, obviously it's beyond stupid to think that climate change isn't a thing. But at the same time, he has to be showing himself to do something for the people he said he was going to help.
Yeah,
because
he hasn't done very much really at the moment, because there's people in the Rust Belt. I mean, cutting income tax, though it's not a terrible thing, it's not helping those people in the Rust Belt who are structurally unemployed, need more education and need more qualifications, and they need help.
Exactly. So I think Trump's doing well overall, but this is just one of those kinks in the armour. Which
definitely,
where he makes himself look pretty stupid.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say that's quite a good point.
But on the same sort of story as Trump, so he's planning to block visas from 7 Muslim countries, as we knew last year. The US is currently bombing 5 of them, and the thing is that the travel ban has gone back to the Supreme Court. In recent weeks.
Yep.
So. Ben, what do you think about the travel ban?
I mean, it's such a contentious issue, and I can definitely see both sides. But I'd say, on the whole, I mean, Obama blacklisted the countries that he wants to ban, right? So, I mean, it's so hard because you have to recognise that the US has signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They've done all these things which gives people a right to do certain things. And the argument of people who are against the travel ban would say that he's breaching their civil liberties and their human rights. But at the same time, if they pose a threat to society, should they be allowed back in the country? I mean, I'd probably have to say no, because if the potential is there for them to kill people, then they're not just taking away 1 or 2 human rights, they're taking away all of their human rights.
Exactly. I think Trump's acting within the interests of his people, and I think he's doing what he thinks right, and I personally agree. But to say that because you come from a certain country means that you can't come to our country, although I agree with it, it might not be the best thing to do in all cases. For example, if the UK started banning people from, I don't know, Saudi Arabia because of their human rights violations, or China, that's
rights all the time.
Exactly. So what's it
but
just doesn't make any sense.
Israelis. And so many just hypocritical people, and that brings us on to the next point, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy of the UN.
Yeah. Oh my God. So Ben and I were at a model UN conference yesterday. So basically, a few hundred school kids get together and just try and act out UN stuff and try and follow procedures and give speeches and debate resolutions and things. Yeah. And I think that highlighted to us the real hypocrisy of the UN.
Well, yeah, because they're I'd say the US, in real terms, has become so hypocritical in concern of, especially the Universal Declaration of Human Rights when dealing with Israel and Palestine. Because it's just a fact that the Israelis are displacing thousands and thousands of Palestinians on the Gaza Strip and on the West Bank, and the US has decided to make Jerusalem the capital of Israel, has decided to recognise it, and I mean that's breaching the deal that they had in the first place, which is going to anger the countries surrounding Israel, which I really can't blame them. Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all those sort of, well, they are backwards theocracies, most of them, but they have a right to be angry because the US is breaching a deal that they had.
And you were telling me this morning, Ben, that the Egyptians have been selling arms to North Korea. And yet nothing's been done about it.
I know. It's ridiculous. I mean, there needs to be some sort of repercussions for breaching international sanctions, and they just sort of haven't been for the Egyptians. They were selling them thousands on thousands of grenades and grenade launchers and things like that. I think RPGs. And I mean, you look at that and you go, well, I mean, you're like, come on, you've got to get it together. And I know they're money hungry, as it were, but I mean, still, you have to draw a line in the sand that those rocket grenades are going to be used to kill South Koreans. They're going to be used to kill anyone who comes to liberate the North Korean people. So I mean, are you really helping? Is that the best thing you could do, just to make a quick buck? I mean, yeah.
From what I've seen, the UN's completely useless.
Yeah, they're ineffectual.
Exactly, because they have so many like committees and subcommittees, and have to do reviews, and you've got to vote things through. And it just doesn't work. Like, what's the point in having a democratic system when the democracy doesn't work?
I'll tell you what really annoys me is the P5 in the UN, where they're on the Security Council. They're the only 5 countries who can have veto concerns over resolutions. That really sort of annoys me, because a lot of countries will just use that as an excuse to vote down things that go against what they think is right. And if you as a P5 nation, if you vote against something, you automatically veto it.
Yeah.
So think about that for a second. So say there's a movement for transgender rights. Well, the Russians, who are part of the P5, will never agree to that, and they can just vote against it and use their veto, even if it's on the Security Council 14-1 in favour. If the Russians are the one country against it, it's not going to pass, and that is ridiculous to me. And I think that's definitely something that the UN needs to look at and say, that's not good enough. We need to change that.
Yeah, but that's why we're saying they're hypocritical even, not Hippocratic. Yeah, because the problem is they just sort of sit around and they actually have no power. Like, what can the UN do apart from send a few people in with, it like blue hats or something?
Yeah, well, they're ineffectual, but at the same time, I would hate to make the UN a sort of sovereign body over us, because at the end of the day, our laws are our laws, and we know our laws better than they do, and therefore we should have more power than they do over what we do.
Yeah, it's just like another EU, like a bunch of people.
International EU, really, isn't it?
Yeah, like not globalists. What am I saying? Just like the elite sort of politicians and stuff getting together, and deciding that they own the world, and just like trying to tell people what to do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
but where Ben and I disagree is definitely on Israel and Palestine, because I'm quite in favour of Israel myself, not because of the US, but just because you know from what I can see they own Israel and Palestine, and the Palestinians have convinced themselves otherwise.
But the Palestinians have owned it for 2,000 years since they drove the Jewish people away. So for the US and sort of external people to come in and say, right, you don't own that land anymore, we're giving it to someone else because they were persecuted 2,000 miles away, and not even by someone who you endorsed or fought with, is absolutely ridiculous.
At the same time, don't you also love Vladimir Putin?
No.
Vladimir Putin is such a good guy.
Vladimir Putin is a dictator. You realise it just before the election that was happening, I think it was late last year or early this year, he imprisoned the leader of the opposition party for, I think it was for treason. I can't remember.
It is treason.
No, to what? To have a democracy?
Well, I think Vladimir Putin's a pretty good guy, really.
Look, he is a legend in that he rides around bareback on a horse, but apart from that, he's a complete knob, and he has no business running Russia.
I think he's doing pretty well. Apart from that Ukraine escapade.
Ukraine? Why would you invade the Ukraine?
I don't know.
He literally did it for no fucking reason at all, other than to test the waters with the UN and see what they would do.
But at the same time, back in the day, Russia did own that land before.
Back in the Soviet Union era, but that was 25 years ago now. Well, it's more than that. It's like 26. What was that? 9, 17, 26.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think he's a good guy. And I think
he's not. He's just the next Russian dictator. He's the next Stalin. You watch. I think he's
He's
the biggest threat.
He's not really a commie.
I think.
but-
Oh yeah. I obviously not. I think he's